Hello everyone, in tonight's video I'm going to go to cover tails, how to make them, how to split them, what materials to use for them, what are the purposes of those materials, and so on. It's a very vast subject, so I'm gonna cover just a tiny bit of it, I guess. I'm going to cover something that I use most of the time, and that's it for now. Maybe in some future videos I'll cover something else. So without any further ado, let's go into them one by one. So let's see what can I show you tonight. So first of all, I'll go through the tailing materials and purposes. So most of the tails are meant to, well, for dry flies. First of all, let's talk about dry flies. For dry fly, tail is usually, if it's made out of rooster or cotyledon or something stiffer like microfibrils, it's there to support your fly. So if you have the tail like most people do it, and I do it as well, like this, so just a little bundle of fibers, the support is not as good as if you place it in a V shape like here, because this one covers larger surface of water, thus it creates more surface tension, and then again your fly will float better and it will land on the water like it should be. This one allows the fly to flip over to the side from time to time. It doesn't happen with parachutes though. Parachute fly, they always land as they're supposed to land. So then you can also fan out the tails, like here a little bit, not fanned out too much. You can split them with a couple of different techniques. I'll show you just two of them. And then you can have trailing shucks, like here. So this one is with CDC. It imitates shuck of an insect that's transforming into a dry version of it. So this one is also trailing shuck, and I will explain to you why I did it this way, because to be honest I never saw someone else doing it the same way I did here. So when it comes to nymphs, my favorite nymph is pheasant tail. So pheasant tail is something that's usually on them as a tail, but there is a problem with pheasant tail. They are like brittle, so as you can see, like you can just break them easily, especially if the bird is too old or the feather is too dry, old, whatever. It's just not very good quality material. And as for nymphs, it doesn't have that functional part. It doesn't stabilize your nymph. It's just there for aesthetics, if you ask me. It's not that important detail. Then you have, of course, streamers. They have tails like zonkers, woolly buggers, whatever, but I'm going to cover just dry flies in this video, and emergers, of course. So without any further ado, let's start and tie some tails right now. So for the simplest tail, you just start your thread where you usually would start it, and in my case this is end of abdomen area, and I cover like maybe 1/3 of the body. So my body should be from here to here, so 1/3, 1/2, that's okay. Then you take a bundle of hair from the cotyledon and you put it, align the tips with the bend of the hook, and see one of those speckles, align it with the tip of the hook here, and then just transfer that, so that spot that you marked should be aligned with the bend of the hook, or whatever reference point you choose. This is how you get your tail same every time, and consistency is one of the aspects of your fly that tells a lot if your flies are well made or not. If you can't make like pretty same flies every time, then you need to work on that. Now I go backwards a little bit, so this part here is a bit thicker, and as I go backwards I'm going to create a taper, as you can see, and I'm pulling, because I'm wrapping thread this way, I'm pulling the tail the opposite way, so I'm compensating for that turn. I'm placing it on the top of the hook, as you can see, and when I finish I get the tail that's like straight. It's just a bundle of fibers sticking out of the hook. This tail, well, it gives the support to a fly to a certain extent. Certainly it's less than split tail. Of course, if you put like 2 fibers, 3 fibers, and you have large fly, it's not gonna support your fly. You need to make a sort of feeling how many fibers you need per fly, per size of the fly, and you need to it's just a matter of practice. Like, you're gonna fish it and you'll see if the fly is riding properly or not. Of course, you can always use less, and after a certain amount of tailing material, you will actually see that it doesn't help, it doesn't improve buoyancy of your fly. So don't use too much, that's definitely not going to help. Now I will show you how to split tails in 2 ways. First, I'm going to show you one of the ways I actually don't like that much, to be honest. So I'll just use orange thread for visibility. Quite easy way, but still I don't like it, because there is something easier than this. And there is always probably something easier than any other way. Well, I didn't do this properly. I hate when I have this little tag end. Okay. Now, create a little ball at the end of your hook. And the size of the ball will determine how splayed your tails are going to be. Also, the angle from this point of the ball to this part here, steeper the angle, more spread the tail will be. So I'm gonna just create a bump here. As you can see, I try to finish it abruptly, more or less. I'll just finish it off here. Now I'll transfer the tail. I don't know why I did this, to be honest, probably just a habit. I transfer to a black thread, and as in the previous example, I'm just gonna create a slight taper over here, but I'm gonna omit that more or less now. So when you're taking the coq de lion, if you just put them perpendicular to the stem, let me show you that. So perpendicular to the stem, more or less now, you get aligned tips. It's not always the case, to be honest, because those fibers are not same length. So try to align those fibers. Remember the spot over here, place it, and then catch tail material and go. Keep it on the top of the hook, that's important. And as you're approaching to the ball, notice what happens. They're actually splaying themselves. Now, you can choose to keep it this way. I'm tightening the thread and they splay a bit more. Now you can choose to keep it this way and just continue tying your fly, and it's quite well splayed. Or you can just pull it a little bit with your hands, redirect it, and see if you need any corrections to be made here. Okay, I want them to be on the side of the hook. Okay, now I like it. And of course there are, like, you can definitely correct whatever you need to correct now. And as you can see, we got a very nice split tail. You can do it with orange tag, definitely, it looks good. Now I'll just finish off and I'll make some flies later. So I'll finish it off. Okie dokie. Now let me show you one more way, and I'm going to use orange thread again, but in a different way. It's quite easy way. I'm starting my fly as always. I'll just speed it up a little bit. Okay, I'll create slight taper here. I'll take away a bundle of coque d'alliance here. Remember the spot, align it. Now go all the way where you want your tail to start, or body to end, same thing. So I'll just take one more wrap here, cut away the excess fibers, and now take your second thread and take some amount of it, and what I like to do, I just go around the hook band like so. It's very useful if you have a material like a spring here on the end of the vise, so you can actually keep that thread like from just rolling around. Now with your thumb, just splay the tails a little bit. You can use your dubbing needle. You can count them if you want. So I'm not sure if I'm going to count them, but like I'm just gonna put my needle like so, and I'm going to help it a little bit to splay. So just use half of those tails and pull them on one side, and then use the other half, pull them on another side. That will keep them like this, aligned more, splayed just a little bit, and then just go with a thread through them. And you will, oops, I pulled too much. Okay, now just put the thread on the top of the hook. Don't pull too much at the beginning. Now position everything where you want it, and then continue with your thread. Okay, now is the time to correct everything that you have, and then just go. And as you can see, split thread again. Now, as you all know, there is a way to do it with thread. It's very tricky to do it on small flies, so go like figure of 8 with your thread. I don't like this technique, to be honest, because it can create sort of a build up here, which I don't like. But what it actually does really well, it splits the tail beautifully. Well, there's always one of these fibers fighting you, but on larger flies such as this one, it's maybe the best way, to be honest, because as you can see, it keeps them together better than any other way, and it splays them very beautifully. Now you can just continue with your tying, and as you can see, just like 1 or 2 eighths at the tail part here. It doesn't have to be much. Well, nowadays, to be honest, you can use just those micro threads like nano silks or power threads or whatever brand you prefer to use. I used Semperfli, I used Extreme. They're all good. Just like I don't prefer any brand over the other. So this is the second way how to do it. Well, sorry, third way, and it's a very beautiful way. So what I like to do with emergers, I like to add trailing shucks on most of them, and emergers are kind of flies that are transforming from nymph to dry fly. Well, that's a very basic explanation, but it does explain it. So for this purpose, I'm gonna use CDC, and for this type of flies, you can use the worst CDC you can get, because the quality is actually not an asset here. So the CDC that looks worn out is probably the perfect one, because it won't increase the buoyancy of your fly. Just catch it and go a little bit down the bend here, and you'll get this trailing shuck. Never ever put floatant on it. The whole role of this tail is to collect those bubbles around it. The trailing shuck will have bubbles very often in it, because bubbles are formed as the insect is going upwards and floating up. So those bubbles help insect to swim up to the surface and to transform into an adult. So those bubbles will actually imitate that part of an insect, and they are very important in imitating our fly. The other way to imitate those bubbles is by adding some crystal flash or any other material that sort of flashes. Or there is a way, I never saw someone else doing it, so I can't call it my way, I guess, but it's probably near. I just go where I want my body to end, so in this case it's here. I take a piece of antron, it's usually this burnt orange color, and I loosely dub a noodle. It doesn't have to be exact quantity every time, just dab a ball at the end of your hook like so, and then from here on just continue tying whatever you want to tie. To create trailing shuck, because this looks like an egg sac for now, just brush out those fibers, and what it does, it tapers out those fibers beautifully. It gives it translucency, and those trailing shucks are translucent, semi-translucent actually. It's very light, it doesn't add any weight, it doesn't add any buoyancy. Don't make it longer than your body or hook is, so this is more or less the length you're looking for. I mean, it doesn't hurt if it's a little bit longer. Don't cut it flush, just leave the taper there. And now, because the insect is going out from the shuck at the thorax part, it's the thickest one, so that ball actually imitates that thorax part because it's the thickest here, it's the least translucent one, and as you go downwards the trailing shuck actually is tapering down. Some bubbles will probably catch here, and that's all about those shucks, and then you create some body here, some wings, and that's what you need from a fly. Now you can continue with the thread body, dubbed body, whatever kind of body, CDC wings, snowshoe wings, whatever you like, guys. So this is more or less it when it comes to tails and trailing shucks. So let me just go through them again. Those kinds of tails are actually supporting your fly on the surface. Your fly will float better with those kind of tails. With trailing shucks, it won't do that at all. Trailing shucks are some attractor triggers there. Now you can add tails with biots, with some fur, badger, guard hair maybe. You can use, let me just show you, you can use those polypurposed wings, just a couple of fibers. It also works good as a trailing shuck. You can use dubbing if you like any kind of dubbing, like ice dubbing, CDC. You can use rooster feathers, basically anything you want. One of the alternative materials would be brushes. Brushes are amazing tailing materials, guys, for painters, those brushes, I mean. Now, as always, I'm going to tie a fly, so I'm going to use one of these V-shaped tails, split tails, and I'm going to tie one of the flies that's sort of super important in Balkans, where I'm from. So I'm from Serbia, and there is a fly that more or less is there all summer. It's rather large. It's going up and down, that's how it mates, up and down, it's mayfly. It has reddish color body, and it's quite large, probably size 12, 10, even 8 in some areas. It's probably different species, to be honest. I'm not sure about those names, and I'm just gonna show you how I tie it sometimes. Of course, we all have different variations, so why this would be any different? So I'm going to use nanosilk 18 denier. I need it just because I want to tie in a snowshoe very well. It's slippery material, so I like to use some extra pressure there. It's also good because you can attach more materials, because it's too, like, the thread is so thin, you can hardly make any buildup using some excessive reps. So I'm just gonna catch tinsel here. Now you can choose to just be careful, no, don't go with the thread over the tails, because you're gonna actually put them together, back together. You can choose to put some ribbing, wire for ribbing, and it's going to, you can do the crisscross ribbing. So you rib this in one direction, the wire in another direction to reinforce it. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do something easier. So I'm going to use some scroll dubbing with a bit of CDC and UV dubbing together. It's claret color, and I'm going to dub it reverse because, oh sorry, I'm trying to learn this new thing that one of the viewers told me to just dub it the other way. Not, I did it sort of counterclockwise, so this guy told me, like, just do it the opposite way, clockwise, because it's gonna actually wrap to itself as you go backwards. So I'm gonna just go backwards from here, and when I reach the end, if I have some extra material, as I do now, I'm just gonna take it off, which is okay. Do it gently, because you don't want to ruin everything else that you tied, like so. So I'll just leave this here, and now I'll just do this in the opposite way. Just a couple of reps, and then I'm just gonna rib it, counter rib it with the thread, keep the tension. This thread is so thin it won't ruin anything when it comes to color. It's just gonna reinforce the fly. So I need to buy new hackle pliers, that's for sure. These are old. So if everything is right as it is now, I did this on purpose, like a little bit fuzzy body, because I like it. I'm going to use it on rougher waters. Now it's time for wings, and I'm using snowshoe hair here, and I'm gonna use the one that's closer to the foot, not the backside of the foot, because this one is more coarse. So I'm just gonna take out a little bit of it. You can also choose to use a little bit more guard hairs here. There is guard hair as well. Now you can just remove what's unnecessary here, and that's this fluff here. So take it away. You can keep it for later for some dubbing. It's amazing body, or for wings on small flies. Okay, now let me see. This should be plenty. Now these flies, they have rather bigger wings, so this is more or less the length of the wings I'm going to use on this one, and I'm going to put it like this, forward. I'm gonna use a little bit more pressure here, build a dam in front of it to lift it up. I also like to do like a parachute post here, just to keep it together, and it's going to be like almost indestructible after this. Now you can choose to add some CDC legs here in a split dubbing technique or B-loop technique, whatever you choose to do, or you can just add some rougher dubbing from, for example, face of a rabbit. That's also amazing material. This is bothering me, to be honest. I hate it. I mean, this is rough. It doesn't have to be neat, but this was just sticking out too much. Now I'm going to be rather lazy, and because I don't want to use too many extra details on this one. I need tails to support my fly, that's why I did split tail, and I need some snowshoe to support, well, to float my fly. I'm just gonna add some squirrel dubbing here, like so. Just dub it roughly. It doesn't have to be tight noodle. Dub it roughly, brush it out later, and that's all you need from this fly. Okay, so a couple of reps behind. Make sure you're dubbing it, wrapping it tightly, because this will keep hairs from not slipping out. And by those last reps, you're actually controlling how much of an angle you want here. Now let me see if I'm satisfied. Yes, I am. I'll add just a little bit of more dubbing. You saw that I just added some extra reps over the dubbing. Maybe you didn't, but I did. So I'm just gonna unwrap that. Look at this. This was just to hold everything in place. Now place with your fingers this upwards. Don't do it sideways. Just go along the hook, along the wings, sorry, and place those turns where you want them. Now pull back all those fibers and create a nice little neat head here. Now use web finishing tool or your hand, whatever you prefer. Create a head. As you can see, the head is yellow. I don't mind it, but I'm gonna color it. Fish won't mind it at all, even though it's not the color I'm targeting here. Okay, sharp is here. Done. Okay, this is what happens when you do rough. Oh yeah, there is one thing you can do with your tails. You can just go with your nails a little bit, and you can give them this curve at the end. It looks okay, looks cool. Now the brushing out part. I always do it sideways apart from the body, like one way, another way, just to imitate those legs. So those scroll fibers will just go away a little bit. They imitate legs quite nicely. When you're using floatant on this fly, use it on wings, use it on tails, you can use it on body, it's okay. And fish it wherever you want it, like when you see those flies flying around, just use this one and you'll be happy to do it. Unlike CDC, this is very easy to maintain. Just rinse it, add some more floatant, and you're ready to go. Guys, if you like this video, consider subscribing, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, share it, whatever you want. I appreciate your support, and I honestly cannot believe that I'm having so many subscribers and so good feedback about my flies. So thank you very much. If you have any suggestions about my future videos, or what should I do, what I shouldn't do, you can also give it down there in my comment section. And that's it. Thank you again, and see you next week.